Welcome to Bradfords Building Supplies International Women's Day 2021 podcast. I'm Zoe Harvey, a sales advisor down in our Dorchester branch in Dorset. And it's my pleasure to bring this fascinating conversation between some of the inspirational women from both our business and the Exeter Chiefs Rugby Club to talk about how they see the world in 2021. Both the construction industry and the world of rugby are traditionally seen as male-dominated, but in 2021, is this still the case? We put this to 5 advocates of both professions. So it's now my pleasure to introduce them. From Bradfords, we have Linda Moore, Bradfords Building Supplies Head of Talent and Development and creator of our award-winning apprenticeship team. She's kindly agreed to chair the conversation for us. Juliet Tregellis, Plumbing and Heating Supervisor at our Bradfords branch in Liskeard and National Builders Merchants Customer Service Award in 2020. And Charlene Dorr, Bradfords branch supervisor in Willand and currently on our fast track to management scheme. And from the Chiefs, we have Lind van der Velden, captain of Exeter Chiefs women's team and Netherlands international player. And Amy Garnett, women's assistant head coach at the Exeter Chiefs, who holds the title as England's most capped hooker of all time with 100 caps. Without further ado, I'll hand over to our very own Linda to kick off. Excuse the pun.
Let's just start then in terms of Amy, do you want to just talk us through how you found yourself doing what you're doing?
Yeah, it's quite, I suppose, a long journey. I used to play for rugby. I played at Saracens was my club. I played there for 18 years. And then I played internationally for England for 11 years, at which point I was a police officer in the Met in London for 15 years. But coaching has always been on my last year at Saracens, I was the player coach there. And it's always something I've wanted to do. And then I had a young family. I've got 3 young children. And then we relocated from Essex to Cornwall. So I'm imbued. And funny enough, as soon as when I moved there, the job for Exeter Chiefs came out. And it just seemed, I don't know, everything, came together at once sort of thing. And it seemed the right idea. I knew they were obviously they were looking for probably someone higher than my qualifications, but I thought I've got to put my hat in. It's something that I'm really interested in. I love the ethos behind Exeter Chiefs, that family-like environment and that grow the local talent and things. So I went for an interview and hopefully, they liked what they saw. Rob Baxter phoned me up and said, we'd like to make a position for you. Would you be willing to work alongside Susie, who I've luckily enough played with before? And that's really been the start of my nearly 2 years in now, start of my coaching journey.
Fantastic. And Linda, I mean, similarly for you, you're a player in what has, I guess, been predominantly a very male-orientated sport when you think of rugby. So how did you get into rugby and taking it to such a high level from an international point of view?
Rugby in the Netherlands is not as big, but my dad always used to play rugby, and my cousin has played for the club the local club I played for as well, and he played for the Netherlands for 7s and 15s too. So it was always something that was at our house, on the TV and stuff like that, but not necessarily that my dad was still playing when I was young. And I don't know, at the age of 17, I wanted to do a team sport because I was a horse rider for 8.5 years, and I wanted to do something in a team. So then I decided to go to the local club and just join for one training, and I never left. And after I think 3 years, I really enjoyed just playing, and I wanted to just develop myself, and that actually never stopped after that, because then I got into the national team, and I felt like I couldn't develop myself in the Netherlands anymore. So last year I decided to move to France to play there, and then I was able to get a contract with Exeter Chiefs. So then I decided to move to England and to play rugby there. Yeah.
Fantastic. Charlene, your journey into the world of the builders merchant, how did that happen?
So with me, it was a case of I moved to Willand with my little boy, and I was working in Exeter, and it used to take me like an hour commute every day by the time I got to my workplace. So that was an hour less at each end of the day with my son. So this job came up, and I'd always kind of been interested in the builders like profession, because my dad's painter and decorator and my stepdad's done a couple of self-builds. So it was kind of, I knew bits and pieces about building trade, not an awful lot. I came for the interview and got it, but that was as an admin role. And then from that, I've now gone into sales, and I enjoy it a lot more. So,
brilliant. Juliet, your journey?
When I left school, I'd been working like a summer Saturday job at Timber Merchants, and then I made the decision of staying on full time for them. Ended up leaving there to go and do a summer season. Came back in the position at Bradfords came up, and I went for it and I got it, and I've been pretty much here ever since, bar a year travelling. So
brilliant. Hey, Linda, what about your challenges then? Because you've sort of gone into a sport, rugby, which, as you say, is in your own country, is hugely probably not as popular maybe as it is in England. Have you sort of found any real opportunities doing what you're doing? What, is being a female been any advantage? Obviously, as a female rugby player, but have there been any other opportunities that you've seen as a result of your chosen career?
I think a girl or a woman being in rugby, I think is already it's better than it used to be. So when I started playing, we would be put on the training pitch, and people would not really cared about our women's team. And I think the last few years, and definitely at the clubs I played for, and I think at Chiefs it's really good that they really care about the women's team as well, that it's not like the B team or something on the side. And I think as a player, for me, when I do interviews for jobs or stuff like that, they always respond really positive on it, because I think being a top athlete takes quite some, you need to be able to do multiple things at the same time. You need to be able to always try to be the best version of yourself, because it's not something really easy. So I think that's why it's always been not necessarily accepted, but always been real positive about those things, because it's also like a sport that is known for its respect and stuff like that. So I think, of course, you always have people that are like women's rugby, but I think most of it, and definitely in the last few years, it has been real positive, which it should be. So that's a good thing, yeah.
Yeah, and I think we've probably moved into, hopefully a new era where we're seeing that sort of different level of opportunity. Do you still see that, do you think that you get the same level of opportunity in the builders merchant world as you would in other worlds? Charlene, what about you?
I don't really know. I know it's difficult because every opportunity is different, and I think saying that I didn't get, a branch deputy manager position because I'm a woman, I think that would be the wrong kind of thing to say. It might be because they don't feel that I've got enough behind me, enough background. So I think, but we do, there's 3 women in this branch, whereas when I started, there were none. I was the first woman that had ever worked in this branch. And getting the customers on board with that, they would always go to my male colleagues for everything. If I picked up the phone, they wouldn't want to talk to me. If I went to the counter, they wouldn't want to talk to me. And it got to the point, I was like, actually, no, you will have, if you want what you are asking for, you're going to have to ask me. Because what would you do if my male colleagues weren't here? You'd have to go through me. And one of the girls here, Mandy, she'll be out on the forklift in the yard all the time. And we get people coming in saying how nice it is to have a female out in the yard. It's like, well, it shouldn't be any different whether you're a female or a male. You're still doing the job.
Yeah. Do you? So, Amy, do you feel as a female in the rugby world that you have to work harder as a female to get the same recognition maybe as male counterparts?
Yes, at the moment I still think it's a bit like everyone's saying it's getting better, but I still think we're almost like the trailblazers, all of us on this call, and hopefully pushing those boundaries, getting more women out there.
In the year 2021, should we even, is it important to single out and have separate things, and recognise women doing things in a man's world, or should it just be a given? What's your view on that, Linda? What do you feel?
Well, I think it should be normal, like you say. Like, people shouldn't question what you said about the woman at your company being on the 4-wheel truck or something.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be even a question. Like, if you do your job, it shouldn't matter if it's a male or a female. I think even if we're like we are now, like, it's already getting better, but it shouldn't be getting better. It should be sort of normal already.
Yeah, and I think, the challenge is that it probably isn't, because, some of the things we said. Is it therefore, Amy, do you think it's important to have a focus that says, there are people in male-dominated businesses and areas that are doing great things, and does that then therefore encourage more females or other genders to join those businesses and teams, do you think?
Yeah, I know when I went for the Chiefs job, and I did ask in my interview, what's your intention behind starting a women's team? Is it I just like ticking that box sort of thing, or do you have real intentions behind it? And I think they've always had really good intention. There's several females on their board of directors, so you could see that they've wanted it for years, and they could see that they really want to push. As a rugby club, they just wanted it. Their aim always has been, it's just to be Exeter Chiefs Rugby Club. It's not Exeter Chiefs men or Exeter Chiefs women. The same as it should be. We're all in this together.
And is it, are you, in terms of people coming in, do you see the opportunity? Is there more females taking on board the opportunity to come into rugby? Amy, is that what you're seeing? Do you think you're seeing enough females coming into the sport?
I think there's out of the Premiership teams, there's 6 female coaches out of the 10 Premiership teams, which when I first started playing, there was a couple, and there's more and more females coaching. There's more females out there playing. So the more people, like I said before, the more people see that, and the youngsters come through see that, it's important to have those role models to know that things are achievable.
And Linda, what about you? Are you seeing, better opportunity now for females coming into the sport, and it's becoming a more popular sport as younger females come in?
Yeah, I think we see in the Netherlands, then we saw after not this World Cup but the World Cup before that there was almost a 60% of growth in only women's rugby in the Netherlands. And I think there's still a lot of things we can do better. Looking at England, I think when I came to England, when I saw that they have rugby at school, university, and for little girls already, with us the girls play with the boys until they're 16, then they get a women's league. We don't have a separate league yet.
Okay.
We're working on that, but you can really see that it's growing a lot. And I think in England, it's great to see how it's arranged there, and how in the Premiership, I don't think a few years ago it was possible to get paid or to get money to be able to play, and you had to do everything on the side. And now we have a full professional program at Exeter Chiefs, so I think that's already something sort of massive what they have accomplished there. So yeah, a lot of things going really well.
Yeah, and obviously it feels like it's going in the direction it should. You just a bit more traction, a bit more speed, maybe for all of us. I guess, Charlene, from your point of view, you know, when you first joined Bradfords, have you seen, you know, you've talked about moving from no females to 3, and you're relatively, I mean, just for context, it's not a big branch in terms of numbers, is it? That's 3 out of 11?
10 of us.
10, okay. So we're seeing almost a third. So are you seeing a difference in, you know, in opportunities for females in the business?
Yeah, definitely. Even in the 3 and a bit years I've been here, the amount of women that I've seen join at different branches and in so many different roles has grown vastly, and it's a really positive thing to have the women in branch. 'Cause a lot, like I said earlier, a lot of people do comment on it, saying that it's nice to come into a branch with not just all men, and we get a lot of women retail customers in here that say that it's nice to come in and not feel intimidated, because they come in, they see women behind the counter, which I guess for them is quite nice, not to see a big bird man behind the counter saying, what do you want?
Juliet, what about you? So you're in what has been very traditionally a male, not just branch, but now plumbing and heating. So for us, our plumbing and heating teams have been very male orientated, and I guess, you know, you've moved into that role as our first plumbing and heating supervisor. Have you seen changes since you've kind of been in the business?
Yeah, not so much with the plumbing and heating yet, but it's still obviously new. But yeah, since when I started with Bradfords, it was like nearly 7 years ago now. So like from then, it was very much most of the women that had the roles were in administrating roles, anything like that. But now, yeah, there's much, like Charlene said, yeah, loads of different women coming through in loads of different positions, which is brilliant. I think it's really positive to see. Definitely.
Yeah. And I think there are, you know, I don't know whether, again, Amy and Linda, you might have some view on this, but there are often some myths in our industry. You know, it's very much around building materials and supplying to builders, and therefore people believe that we can't work in yard areas because we've got to lift and, you know, driving a forklift, but we can perfectly capable of driving cars and picking up children, and, you know, but there is these myths that are getting busted. You know, as we bring apprentices in that are female, they're all working in yards and driving forklifts. Are you seeing some myths that are busted or need to be busted in the world of rugby?
I think we're still currently busting those myths all the time, but it's getting less and less, isn't it? The way it's hopefully across all industries, we represent society as it's now, and, you know, and as it should be, not necessarily just with gender, with, you know, ethnicity, everything. But, you know, we're getting a fairer representation across the board, and that's what everyone's striving for, isn't it? That's what, you know, within rugby, within Bradford, with the industry at large.
Yeah, definitely. Linda, what about you? Are you seeing any myths that have been busted from a rugby perspective? Are people surprised when you tell them you're a rugby player, for example?
Yeah, most of the time people are surprised, to be honest. But when I say like I'm a rugby player, at first they are surprised, but then they'll be like, well, you're sort of built, you have the build, and I don't really know what that means when but no, I think like you always have to sort of show yourself, or I feel like when you say you're a rugby player in the beginning, they're like, okay, a female rugby player, and then once they've watched the game, they're like, oh wow, that's pretty cool, or something like that. But in the beginning, it always feels a bit like you have to sort of show themselves or impress them or something. And I'm not sure if when a guy says he's a professional rugby player, he needs to do that. So.
And you know, we talked as part of this conversation about trailblazing and, you know, having, you know, making sure that there are people like us being really encouraging about why you would want to come into this, into the industries that we're in and the game we're in. So what if you were, Charlene, if you were trying to sort of recommend and encourage more females into the sector, what sort of things would you be, what advice would you give somebody that felt that this was an opportunity for them?
I'd just say to do it. You're gonna come up against boundaries, but then you use we get a lot of the older generation in here that just, they don't see you as being an equal to the male colleagues, but they'll ask you a question and you'll answer it, and it's like you've blown their mind because they didn't expect you to know it. And I use that kind of reaction to push forward. So I'd say, like, do it. Just keep learning, keep looking at all the new products coming out, and just get all of your knowledge. And then when negative people come up, you can just empower them with that knowledge.
Amy, what about you in terms of, you know, encouraging females into the game? What sort of advice would you give them?
Pretty much along the same lines as Charlene, really. It's like, I think if you've got the knowledge behind you and, you know, your qualifications, you've done your homework, you know, you study, you're forever trying to, like, be that, like Linda said before, being the best version of yourself, then there's only one way, and that's forward.
Juliet?
Yeah, I would probably say just be assertive. I'd say trust in the skills that you've got, and also have a good sense of humour. If you know, just have a laugh with it, and actually, you know what you're good at it. So just be yourself.
Linda, what about you?
Yeah, I just think, like, in the end of the day, you need to do what makes you happy, and if you just work hard, and I think you'll always end up being the best version of yourself when you work hard and you do what you want. And I think people also respect that, so you'll get you earn the respect like you need if you just stick to yourself, sort of, or stick to your gut.
Yeah, I think one of the things that certainly I've seen is, you know, when we recruit our apprentices and we take our apprentices through our programs, is how much people build in confidence. You know, I think, you know, particularly if you look at females across our business, they are very confident, and they're confident in their own abilities, and often more confident in their knowledge and skills than their male counterparts. Would you agree with that, Charlene? Do you think that's a true?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, perfect example is Rachel here. When she came into the business, she was like a little mouse. She wouldn't say boo to anyone. And working alongside myself and colleagues, she's now strong. She'll give the banter back to the lads when they come in, and she wouldn't have dreamt of doing that when she first came here. And then you get the other characters that, as soon as they come in, they're those strong characters, and they've had a similar job previously, and working in the male environments, they're used to the banter they're going to get, they're used to the comments they're going to get, and they just give as good as they get, and just keep growing in that confidence.
Amy, do you see that as a coach? Do you see that, you know, bringing, as you know, as you coach, as females are brought in, that they do build their confidence in the sport? Does it help improve their self-confidence?
Yeah, it's obviously we're together often, and I think the more we come together and you repeat those skills and you're always pushing yourselves and learning, you just get more comfortable within yourselves. The players get more comfortable with themselves and with each other, and then together they get stronger as a team. We've come massively since we joined the Premiership as a brand new team in September to now. I would say we're unrecognisable. Players, a team, in confidence, their own ability of where they think this team can go is unrecognisable.
That's great news. Juliet, what about you? So you've always been a confident outgoing, went off travelling on your own. But are you seeing across the board, as you've kind of progressed, are you seeing other people growing confidence, females, as they come into the business?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, and I also think it helps that we have got a good support group in the sense of other women in the company. There's loads of women that I can go to, and they're not going to judge if I don't get something wrong. There's quite a lot of pillars of women that you can go to and that are knowledgeable and that have been through this. So any of the apprentices that are coming up, that are younger, or they have, like Charlene said, they've got that supporting branch or any other branches to be able to go to, and we can go, look, we've all been there. It's not what we want to, it's not how it should be, but this is how you can overcome it and rise above it.
Linda, what about you? Do you feel that your confidence levels have grown as you've kind of progressed through the sport? Do you feel that you are sort of growing in confidence? If you hadn't done this sport, do you think you would be as confident a person as you are now?
No, I don't think so. And I always say, like, I don't think if I wouldn't have played rugby, it definitely changed my life. So and in the beginning, I feel like when I started playing for my national team, I was not necessarily that confident. And now looking back, I think now I'm confident. Like, I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at. But like looking back, there have been tournaments that I thought that was so amazing. Why was I so insecure about what I could do? And now I don't have that opportunity to play that tournament again. So I really learned from that. And I always tell the girls as well that, like, you just have to enjoy everything that you do now, because sometimes you don't get a second chance to do certain things, and you don't want to go back and think, oh, I could have worked harder, or oh, I should have done this. Like, you want to leave everything on the pitch every time.
Yeah, and I think it's great, isn't it, to see what has traditionally been very male orientated a sport as rugby, and certainly our industry, the builders merchant, starting to kind of open up and not only kind of bring females in, but also try and make sure that we are helping them to grow in confidence, and that message goes then back out that this is a great sport to play, or this is a great industry to join. And I guess then my final question is, I think I know what you're all going to say, but let's just put it out there anyway. Amy, would you be a huge recommender of somebody coming into the world of rugby as a young person to kind of help them and help them grow their careers and confidence? Is the world of rugby the right place for a female to start thinking about, an early age joining?
Most definitely. I may be a little bit biased, but a bit like Linda. No, definitely a bit the same. Because Linda, I would not be the person I am today if I hadn't played rugby, and just the lot of the ethos and the culture behind it, and what it instills in you, and that the teamwork and that loyalty and just looking out for each other. I think breeds and makes you confident, and it's just a lovely environment to be in. I think, like everyone is saying on this call, if you really work hard and you're doing something that you enjoy, the world is your oyster, isn't it? You're only going to grow, and you're going to just grow. Those opportunities will grow, and there will be more of them because you can really take in the chances when you've got them.
Perfect. Juliet, what about you? Did you sort of be encouraging?
Yeah, 100%, definitely. I think, I think it will be amazing to have more women, just keep on growing and growing the business. I think it's definitely, if someone wanted to go into this industry, I'd definitely say, yeah.
Thumbs up. Charlene?
Yeah, exactly the same. I would say do it. I think a rugby club and a branch of Bradfords are very similar. I spend a lot of time at my local rugby club, and they're like a close-knit family, and they've always got each other's back. And I think when you walk into a branch of Bradfords, it's very similar. We are all like a little close-knit family. Our customers are part of that as well. We all look out for each other, and there's never a silly question. There's no such thing as a silly question, and there's no backlash. If you don't understand something, you need to ask questions. There's always someone to ask, like Juliet was saying earlier.
Brilliant. Linda, what about you?
Yeah, I think the same as well. I think what's good from rugby as well is that it's a bit the same like it was just said, but if you have one really good player that's not gonna win a game, like you need 15 players and you need to work together. So if you have only one star player, then you're not gonna win the game. So I think that's why it's good to at a young age already join in on like a rugby team, because you learn how to handle those things and work together, and that will help you further on in a different career as well.
Wow, thanks to our panel for being really engaging in this conversation and providing such great insight into both Bradfords and the Exeter Chiefs. Thank you for listening, and please do watch out for our next podcast.